Well, good evening, folks. This is Dave Schmidt. I'm your host here again tonight on the Cosmic Connections. This is our February 10th program. I want to thank everybody for joining us here tonight. I took a break last week. I ended up leaving a day early to go to San Francisco over the weekend where we had an absolutely wonderful workshop. It was kind of a blessing in disguise that I was able to do that because, California, now this is just my opinion, but they seem to be having more fear and more crazy about the COVID stuff than anywhere else that I've been. And I've been to a lot of places, since last August. I mean, it was like it was only until a couple of weeks ago you couldn't even eat inside of a restaurant in the state of California. Now the state opened it up, but then what happened was the county was still having restrictions for the meeting places, and you couldn't have indoor meetings. And that's another whole story how we were able to work with the hotel and still had our meetings in San Francisco, and we didn't have to cancel it. But on that note, though, but with that, before I get into that, Blanca, I want to welcome you here tonight and just say, how are you doing on this fine evening in mid-February in Atlanta, Georgia?
Doing great. Thank you. Thank you, Dave. And I'm glad that you had a successful workshop. And I know you'll be telling people more about the some of the future workshops, again, given, negotiating around the COVID issue. And so, yes, doing great.
Yes. Well, folks, we are scheduled to be in Baltimore in, a week from Saturday on, February 20th. And folks, that is close to being sold out. So folks, that's probably going to close tomorrow or the day after as a few more registrations come in. There's no more room for any more scholarship rates at Baltimore. I've only got, I think, about 4 or 5 seats that are left that are available in Baltimore. And when I say it's sold out and then San Francisco was sold out, it's not like it used to be sold out. It's just back to the fact that we're limited how many people we can bring in because of the COVID scenario. They allow it, like in Maryland and in Baltimore, they allow you to come in, but the chairs have to be 6 feet apart and stuff like that. So they have a limit on how many people we can have in the meeting room there. And we had the same thing in San Francisco, but everything is good. Everything is great. People are enjoying it, and obviously once you get inside the room, you can kind of do whatever you want to do. And if you got a husband or wife or people that live together, they can bring their chairs together and stuff like that. So they get shifted around a little bit and stuff like that, but all is well. But that's Baltimore a week from Saturday. And then after that, on March 6th, there was Denver, and I do these every 2 weeks. So starting at March 6th, it's Denver, Cleveland, Santa Ana, California, Boston, Phoenix, and Toronto. Now, all of those are, yes, dependent upon the fact that they're letting us have the meetings in the hotels. Now, I haven't checked with Denver and Colorado yet. I'll be checking on that tomorrow. But my understanding is yes, again, they're allowing the same thing, that you just have to have the chairs 6 feet apart. But and I do these one at a time. So, but I always try to make sure I have that information at least 3 weeks out in case I have to change the location at the last minute. But we're looking Baltimore, Denver, Cleveland, Santa Ana, Boston, Phoenix, and Toronto, and that's in mid-May, and that's assuming that I can go into Canada without going into a quarantine. Because right now you still have to do a 10-day quarantine. I says, folks, I'm not going to go in there and hibernate in a hotel room for 10 days just to do a workshop, okay? Not yet. But other than that, I should say all is well. All is well. It's just interesting because as I experienced the difference in California in contrast to here in Florida. Now, Sunday was Super Bowl Sunday, and the Super Bowl was here in Florida. If you notice, there wasn't hardly anybody wearing masks. The only place they're enforcing the mask is when you are inside of a public building, restaurants, stores, etc., and stuff like that. They're saying, hey, you got to wear a mask in there. But other than that, there's hardly anybody wearing masks here in Florida, except the fearful ones. There are still some fearful ones that are doing it, and I tell you, but it's sure the fear seemed to be pretty strong there in in California. I couldn't believe people were wearing masks everywhere you go, and they wouldn't even let you get close to them. And it's just like it's a different world. but so much for that. Well, Blanca, let's come back to you. If you have anything that you would like to share about what your thoughts are.
Well, in San Francisco, you were offering people the opportunity to participate in the first round
Yes.
of the exchange. Did you get good participation? I'm curious. Are there still opportunities in like, for example, Baltimore? And because I'm sure people are interested in learning how that's going.
Yes, Baltimore, and that's what I mean. That people who attend the workshops, they can come into the first round because I'm just limited with how many people I can bring in. That's the problem. Because remember, I got 15,000 people on my newsletter list. I have about 6,000 to 8,000 that are active that actually open up the newsletters each week, and I only get to bring in about 100, 150 people. So that's why I'm limited to those who are attending the workshops. Or I have a very special list also that I've sent out, and it's basically past workshop attendees. But anybody who attends, yes, in Baltimore and in Denver, I can say that now. Both of those will be good, Baltimore and Denver. Beyond that, I don't know. It just depends on where we are and how things fill up between now and then. So, yeah. On the currency exchange, on the Dong exchange, I get updates, from my brokers, and they said there were some things that had to develop, and they are almost completely done with that. And then also the presidential election had to be finalized and settled. Now, I don't know if that means that's where it is now or what could still possibly happen. Don't ask me. That's all I know. That's what they said. I think they never give us dates. They will never, ever, ever leak out a date because as soon as you leak out a date, then you get this massive opposition coming from basically the cabal sources because they want to shut this whole thing down. And so, but we do sometimes get a possible estimation. And what we're hearing is that there is a possibility that it could start coming through in about 2 to 3 months. There is a possibility that we could start seeing a payout in about 2 to 3 months. That's if everything goes as planned and there's no disruptions, there's no interruptions or any of that kind of stuff. There's a strong possibility we might see something in 2 to 3 months. But folks, none of that is etched in stone and none of that is guaranteed. Okay? So, yeah. But that's the scoop there of what's happening on the currency exchange. And again, this is for us, it's the Dong because I work through the Texas processing office, and that's the only thing we're taking in. On the Zim, we're basically looking for the opportunity to acquire a new Zim buyer. There's a good possibility that might happen, but that's months away. Nothing on that will happen until the first round is paid out. But there is a good possibility we'll have a Zim buyer in what is called the second round scenario. So, yeah. Okay. And then with that, Blanca, is there anything else you'd like to share with us before we head into the program tonight?
No, that's good. I'm glad that the windows open up for some people to participate. That's a great opportunity, and so they can plan if they want to participate. Hopefully, they can go to either Baltimore before it closes, and possibly Denver if meetings are going forward. So they've got some advance notice to plan for that. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So, okay, folks, a couple of weeks ago, I had entitled the program "The Great Awakening," because what we're seeing is this really strong movement from basically what we call the New World Order. These are the people that meet at Davos, Switzerland, and they're wanting to create what is called the Great Reset. And they're wanting to totally reset the world. What that is, basically, it's a very strong movement to bring us into a one world government. And in this one world government, what we're going to see is what I call our sovereignty, our ability to be free and to think for ourselves and to speak for ourselves will start to be shut down. And we're already starting to see some of the first possible signs of that happening now, about how freedom of speech is being restricted on the various social media platforms, because if you're opposing, if you're not following what is called the programmed line, they're shutting you down and closing you down. I've had 2 of my YouTube videos just taken off the air by YouTube. So you're seeing that from Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Google, and the others. This is the early indication, the early examples of a potential new world order that they want to bring forward. And that's what this real battle is that's going on, where they want the Great Reset, but what I see is what's happening is what is called the Great Awakening. Now, I've been going back and listening again to the Neruda interviews. And folks, I always encourage you to listen to those if you really want to get a good picture of what's going on. And it's in that 5th interview, they talk about this development of what they call human 3.0. What Neruda says is that human 1.0 was what was called the Cro-Magnon, i.e., the caveman era. Human 2.0 is the Homo sapien era of where we are now. We've had lots and lots of upgrades over the thousands and thousands of years. And he said we're now moving into an era of human 3.0. But there's going to be 2 versions of that 3.0. One version is going to be what the wingmakers call the sovereign integral. Now, these are people who are highly conscious, highly aware, using the power of their thoughts and their consciousness to be able to develop the life that they want and how they want to experience life. The contrast to that is called the transhumanist. The transhumanist is we're going to start seeing the merging of the human body with various types of technology that can, on the appearance, be very, very seductive because what it can do for you on a physical basis. But here's what happens. See, consciousness, awareness, and your ability to rise above all the issues out there is a process of keeping your vibration of your body and your mind in a very high vibratory frequency rate. When you start replacing parts of your body that vibrates at high frequency with technology issues, you've totally lowered the vibration of your body frequency. Let's say you bring in a false leg. What you've done is remove the energy that leg is producing on a natural consciousness basis, and it's being replaced by a machine, by a false mechanical leg. Physically, it seems nice, but energetically, it totally lowers your energy vibration. And that is where this New World Order wants us to go, because they know if they can get us to lower our energy vibrations, our consciousness lowers, and we don't have the ability to think for ourselves. And then we end up being in what is called this controlled world. Now, we are going through a process of shifts and changes that are taking place on this planet. And the whole concept of keeping yourself into high energy vibration works in conjunction with your DNA within your body and in your mind, and making sure you stay in a high vibration state and status. History that is being shown, in fact, when I talk to you about this, all this comes out of the writings of the channeling messages of Barbara Marciniak, how the Palladians channel through her, the writings of Wes Penray. You see this in the writings of A.R. Borden, and you also see this in the Neruda interviews, and it's even coming out in some other areas as well, a little on a more subtle basis. But what it means is human consciousness is being what is called fully, completely, highly energetic, functioning conscious beings is where is our destiny, of where we are going to as a human race. We used to be, thousands and thousands of years ago, we used to be fully complete, multi-dimensional, high-frequency vibrating beings. And along in the process, we ended up being tricked by the Anunnaki, where they were masters at geneticists, and they totally shifted and changed our genetics. And what that did, it totally slowed down our vibratory consciousness and turned us into basically what were slaves. And the way that they did that is, see, we know within our body we have what is called the double helix strand of DNA, 2 strands. But what's really there within our cells is there's 12 strands of DNA, but 10 of them are disconnected. And by disconnecting those strands, it shuts us down. It basically puts us in a slavery state, makes us become ignorant. We don't understand. We don't know how to think. We don't know how to expand. And that has been the status of the human race now for thousands of years. But here's what's happening. This is the era where humanity gets to wake up again. We get to move into the higher stages of consciousness. And how that physically happens is these DNA strands are being reconnected. And I think there's lots of us that are already, our 3rd strand has already been reconnected. Because see, here's what happens. When these DNA strands get reconnected, it means light energy comes down into your body, and it goes through those DNA strands, and it connects with your whole frequency vibration, and it connects you with your subconscious mind, which is where we live most of our lives from. Now, these 12 strands are still there, and these strands are basically like master computer hard drives. Within our DNA is all of the memories, all the experiences, all the emotions, all the thoughts that we've ever had in every lifetime we have ever lived. We don't know them and experience them because they're in the subconscious mind, and those 10 strands are disconnected, so they don't reconnect with your memory, but they're still there. It's basically like you've got a computer hard drive that has this massive amount of information in it, but the bandwidth is not connected. And what's happening now is the bandwidth is starting to be reconnected. And as the bandwidth gets reconnected, i.e. the strands get reconnected, then it means that memory starts coming back for us. And we start becoming conscious beings, highly aware beings, highly functional beings. And we learn how to think entirely differently and get beyond the limitations of this physical body. And in a number of different books, it talks about that we move into being like what Jesus was, this highly conscious, aware being who, in the miracles that he could do, because they were all a product of his thought, his thinking, and his high vibration consciousness. That's how he was able to do miracles. And where Borden talks about the learn process, it's all again back to making sure your vibrations are high and your thinking is appropriate, because it's a mental energy process, this learning to make things appear out of nothing. That's where we are going if you want to be a part of it. It's not going to happen automatically. You have to choose to be a part of it, and then you have to choose to start mentally preparing yourself to allow these strands to be reconnected. Now, I'm going to share with you what is my opinion. The vast majority of you that are watching this program are highly conscious people. The people who don't believe in this, they don't listen to the programs, they don't come to the workshops, they're not in touch with what's going on. But people who are awake and aware of what's really going on, I think those are the people that their 3rd strand has already been reconnected, and some of them possibly their 4th strand. because they're getting downloaded information, they're receiving information, they're processing stuff that others are not. Some people are totally ignorant to what's going on. They're believing everything that's being fed to them by the mainstream media, and they're so out of touch with the shift and transition that's going on in our world. The issue is the restructuring and the reconnecting of these DNA strands, and that's what allows us to be free and rise above this transhumanist agenda movement. You see, if we start moving into thinking, believing, and experiencing as Jesus did, we don't need false physical parts to our body. We mentally heal it. We mentally create it. We're already seeing reports and hearing reports of people who are very advanced in their consciousness, and they're making limbs grow back for themselves and other people. Now, that comes to the bigger picture of always remembering that we are creating everything that we are experiencing. We are the ones who are creating everything that happens in our lives. Our bodies, when you understand that we live in a world in conjunction with quantum physics where nothing is actually physical, it's all an amount of fast accelerating energy that comes together that gives us a sensation of being physical, but it's actually not. This energy is moving so rapidly, but consciousness, human thought, can shift and change that energy. We are people who are always in the process of creating everything that we experience through our thoughts. Now, A.R. Borden calls this process MPO, Manifest Production Observership. As we are observing, we're manifesting and producing everything that we see and experience in our lives. He uses another term called LEOM, Light Encoded Object Matrix, where we encode packets of light energy with thoughts from our thoughts, and that is what is making things physically appear, etc., and stuff like that. And then when you come to LERM, Light Encoded Reality Matrix, that's the ability to make something appear instantly right in front of you that you can actually physically have in your hands. See, Jesus did that when he was able to turn the water into the wine. The feeding of the 5,000 when he only had a couple loaves and fishes, and he made that multiply and fed 5,000 people with it. It's producing, reproducing, recreating whatever is in front of you, because your energy thoughts are what allows that to happen. But we have to learn how to think that way. Moving into this new higher consciousness world is a matter of retraining how we think, reprogramming how we think. When you listen to the work of Borden, Neruda, Marciniak, and the others, they all tell you that 95% of our daily lives is lived from the subconscious mind. And that is a mind that has been programmed for scores, if not hundreds of lifetimes, over thousands and thousands of years, that we're limited. We can't do this. None of this is possible. Well, this is the era that we are going to be assisted in a rapid shift and change of reprogramming the subconscious mind that says, I can do that. It is possible. These are things that not only can I do, but I'm going to learn how to do that, and it's going to be a regular part of my life. And that's where we're going to see this human 3.0 of the two versions. People who are living from a high state of consciousness versus people who are living under the controlled New World Order system of their transhumanist agenda. And if we learn how to move into the higher states of consciousness We don't have to worry about what they can do. Let's say they limit what we can do, how much we can spend our money. We got to have a COVID card or we can't buy anything or go anywhere. Well, if you can learn everything, you don't need anything. You're not dependent upon any of their stuff. Borden brings this out in a couple of his books, and even in one of his novels. He talks about you are not dependent upon anything that's going on out there in the world, because you've learned how to rise above it, because you create everything you need for yourself, and you are a sovereign, complete, free individual with the ability to develop your own thinking for yourself. You're not a slave to this new world order that's limiting what we can do and how we can think. That's the shift and change that's coming our way. And folks, I'm working on it. I'm starting to already work on retraining how I think, reprogramming how I think. Now, this takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. For most people, this is going to take some years. But it is a step-by-step process. And as I learn it, I'll be sharing and explaining it with you. So, well, Blanca, that's kind of what I wanted to say of the program tonight. It's a short program here, but I'll turn it over to you. And why don't you go ahead and share with us your thoughts around that?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, very good. Well, just a couple of things, and I do have some echoes to what you've been saying, but I know, and people who've been listening to your show for quite a while have probably already either listened to or read the Neruda interviews, but for new people, can you tell them where they can find these interviews?
Yes, go to my website, click on the resources tab, and they are all there in PDF format, all 5 of the Neruda interviews.
Excellent.
And that's where they can get them.
And those are a continuation of the novel, The Ancient Arrow Project.
Yes.
So that's also something that they can take a look at if they're interested in catching up. And the very fascinating thing is all this was talked about many years ago, and now is the time where we're starting to actually see actual events occurring and conversations occurring, and even things in our own lives occurring that actually verify what was contained in some of the knowledge shared in the Ancient Arrow Project and some of the things that Neruda talked about in his interviews.
It's interesting when you look at the Neruda interviews, all the things that he talked about, and then you go back to Barbara Marciniak's books that are channeled from the Palladians. Those were all written 20 to 25 years ago, and it's like we're starting to see them happening now. It's like they're just coming right forward before us, and we're starting to see them become reality now. It was hard, 20 years ago, it was hard to grasp the things that we're saying, because we weren't in that era of the shift and change and dynamics and things taking place. But it was like they were written 20 years ago for today. They are so relevant when you read all of those, the Marciniak's books and the Neruda interviews.
That's exactly correct. So it's almost like they were giving us a roadmap and a herald of things to come so we could start preparing. So that's the other thing you mentioned, that a key, and we've talked about this before, is the frequency. And by frequency, another way to talk about it is, what state of mind are you in, or what state of heart are you in? So lower frequency thoughts or emotions are the anger, the fear, like this COVID psyop is to instill fear in humankind. You see, the controllers do not want to lose control of their planet, and they will lose control of their planet as we start to wake up and our DNA starts to get activated, and we start not needing their particular reality illusion that they're projecting, that we used to believe and used to actually energize and uphold. And so they're going to do whatever they can to stop that. And so, for example, a COVID pandemic scare tactic, and it's, it works. You could tell a
Yes.
lot of
Yeah.
people are really scared about this. So that's what that is, and that whole medical tyranny aspect of what is going to be what Dave is calling and Neruda was calling Human 3.0, the transhumanist. So yes, let's vaccinate you every time we say you need one, and don't ask what's in that vaccine. Like the mRNA that's going to mess with your genes. So that's the deal. That's what's ahead for the transhumanist agenda, which is even clamping us down even more if we accept it. Now that's the low frequency option here, and that's going to be anger, hate, fear, worry, scarcity, all those kind of emotions. So if you're saying, what can I do to be part of the 3.0 sovereign integral, as Dave says, it's an energetic thing, it's a frequency thing. So emotions of love and compassion and the things like Neruda talked about in the six heart emotions, appreciation, compassion, forgiveness, humility, understanding, valor. So those are the things that we want to cultivate in our lives so that we are high frequency, and that's what activates the DNA as well. Now, the interesting thing is, depending on our frequency, that also attracts, as Dave says, what we are experiencing in our lives. And, the Bible talks about stories of miracles. Dave mentioned Jesus' miracles and, Moses parting the Red Sea and all that. That's explaining what happens when high frequency lives are being led. So you will be surprised if you maintain a high frequency, energetic body. Your reality will shift, and you will experience things that other people can't experience. So those are the only other things I'd like to add to what you were saying. Hello?
Yeah. Are you there? Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, I can hear you now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So anyway, that hopefully that came through. Somehow my line is cutting in and out, so hopefully some of that came through.
Huh. Okay. Yeah. No, I heard you real clear. Everything was clear for me on my
Okay.
end. So yeah, you were fine.
Okay, very good. Very, very good. So this is very exciting news for us, Dave, because it's happening. This is the time, and we will have help. So you have high frequency thoughts and high frequency living. You're going to attract that type of life, and you'll attract that type of help. So you'll attract the knowledge and even high frequency beings like whoever inspired the Neruda interviews and the beings that, for example, Barbara Marciniak is working with. So those beings also have an interest in us winning this battle because it's a cosmic thing. It's a cosmology. The whole cosmos wants to ascend, and right now this is where the game is, right here in humanity.
Well, it's interesting because see, the Cabal have always stated that their greatest fear is the human race waking up. Because as the
Absolutely.
human race starts to wake up, that's when they lose their power and control. And that's what a lot of us are doing. But what we're also seeing, they know their ability to keep power and control over people is to create fear-based events. And I think we're seeing this. The COVID is probably the single largest career-based experience we've ever had where it has put the whole planet in fear all at the same time. We've never had anything like that before. And I think what we're seeing is their desperation. I think they're starting to lose a lot of people who are waking up. So I think we're going to start seeing more fear-based events, more catastrophic events, more power-controlled events on their part. And it's important for us to understand we have the ability to rise above it. The most important thing that we do is to not fall into fear. Do not, as soon as you fall into fear, they've got you, in so many words. They have you in the ability to control you, to think how they want you to think. By rising above the fear and staying strong, we have the ability to rise above whatever it is that they are throwing at us. And our consciousness then has the ability to create whatever is necessary to stay above their fear-generated issues. There is always a counter ability to always rise above whatever they throw at us. That's a part of fear and whatever power and control that they want to do. So don't ever think that you can't. Don't ever think that you can't. You always can. The ability is always there, but you have to be willing to believe it and to take the actions to do it. So, okay, I'll go back to you, Blanca. So.
No, that's correct. I think that's good counsel, and I think, of course, the people who listen to this have probably already been practicing some of this, and but it's tough. It's going to get tougher because they're really trying to put the clamps because they see us slipping away. And so if as as Dave is saying, if you seeing the reality really heat up, well then just you heat up your vibration and your frequency and just let it fizzle away.
Yep. So. Okay, well, I don't have anything else. Do you have anything else for tonight?
No, I think we covered at least this topic for now pretty well.
Yes. And folks, if there's anybody that's out there that would like to call in and make some comments or have some questions, the call-in number is 515-605-9356. That's 515-605-9356. And we'll give about 30 seconds to a minute here to see if anybody wants to call in. And if not, we'll call it an evening. But I think one of the most important thoughts is to know whatever we live in a world of what is called duality consciousness and dualistic polarity energy. So whatever they throw at us, we always have a counter corresponding amount of energy to overcome it. It's never an issue of them being stronger. It's always an issue of belief and trust. If you fall into fear, then yes, they will be stronger. If you rise above the fear, then you always have the ability to overcome and move beyond. And that's what's extremely important. Well, I'm not seeing anybody calling in. Blanca, are you?
No, I don't see any either. So hopefully some people have either confirmation that they're on the right road or give them some thoughts to that they're not alone.
Yes.
All of us are in this, you and me and everybody who's, just trying to maintain a high frequency. They see the dissolution of the matrix, and so that gives them encouragement.
Yep. Well, we're coming up to the 40-minute mark on the program, so that's a kind of a good time to have a program where it's good and easy for you to listen to, and it's not too long. So, well, folks, with that, I think that's all I have for tonight, and then we will see you next week here on the Cosmic Connections. I'm trying to get the jingle to start. Let's see. Why does the jingle not... Oh, hold on. Did it go? There we go. Had trouble getting that button to work. Okay. All right. Thanks a lot, folks. We'll see you next week. Okay. Bye-bye.